Welcome into Dynasty Mode, the unofficial EA Sports college football game podcast. My name is the getting more and more relaxed Arky Shea now that I have a job this fall to coach a team. That is Demetri Ravanos. Demetri,
Coach Shea, Coach Shea, Coach Shea, Coach Shea,
uh,
Coach Shea,
yes,
Coach
this
Shea,
will be my yes
Coach Shea.
down in front, the only one.
Rumors are swirling about your job security. How do you feel headed into literally your first practice?
Not as great as I would like to. I haven't even gotten a key card yet to the facility.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'd feel a little better once I got that. But it's kind of being told that's too much. Okay. No, I'm great. I feel great. That's too much. We're taking one day at a time. We're taking it one day at a
Just
time.
a quick follow up. Your head coach before this press conference said, and I quote, "Arky Shea really is garbage." Comment.
Did you really say that?
Just a clarification. Not as a coach, but as a human being. Comment.
Well, um, God, not a great first day. I'll be honest with you. Not a great first day. I'm just gonna. That's enough questions for today. That's enough.
Well,
Demetri,
we'll talk to you next week, everybody.
scene. So okay, this is an unexpected episode of Dynasty Mode, and it's unexpected because we had other plans about other things to talk about this week, but news ish broke from our good friend Matt Brown of Extra Points and that sweet newsletter about some more freedom of information stuff that he got concerning the CLC EA Sports, and of course, our favorite college football game that'll be coming back. And Demetri, I thought this would be a good time before everyone starts getting into vacation mode. Let's get into some of the news that we got some clarity on. Would you like to do that?
I think so, because of course we should start with some self-congratulations that Arky, you called it. Now, granted, we don't know the date, but July 2023, as you said you were expecting, will be when EA Sports, I guess we're going to call it College Football 24, is planning to drop.
Yeah. Listen, I think the running assumption is, and this is not what we're about to report on because this has not been sort of figured out with the
Vetted,
license
I
and all.
believe.
Is that remember when NCAA was one of the first ones to take away its license, so to speak, to not renew its license with EA back when all the turmoil was going down with the Ed O'Bannon case. So there was a lot of speculation from then that NCAA and EA just weren't friends with each other. And,
Right.
This is for another podcast that we'll talk about, but there was some throwing under the bus by the NCAA to EA Sports and vice. There are just some hard feelings, right? And plus, to license the NCAA,
Right.
Say again?
Oh, I said right. That's all.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, it's like over $500,000 to license NCAA, right? I don't know if we sort of had we haven't had a chance to even talk about that. So this is the cheapest thing in the world. But so there's been the discussion that this would not be NCAA football 24. This would be college football 24 or EA Sports College Football 24. But, that'll be interesting to decide. And yes, I did call it summer, July, second week of July is still what I'm thinking. The second Tuesday in July is still what I'm thinking. So let's see if we can keep that on track. In fact, that's the first thing to talk about, which is they're still expecting summertime next year for this to be the release, and it looks like a July 2023 release, which sort of coincides with what we've seen from the last several editions of this video game. So for Demetri, like this part of it, I mean, they're still on track. These memos go back to February this year, so it's the most recent information we got. They're still on track for something that, to me, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that build up before the season, I think it's advantageous for them from a business perspective too, right? Because you may hold off getting it on day one, but as the game gets closer, or as the actual games get closer and closer to kick it off, I would imagine there is probably I don't know if you would call it a second surge. Maybe it's a steady drip of purchases, but I would guess that purchases of that game don't really fall off through the end of the summer. I would guess they probably extend well into the fall before we start to see significant drop off in purchases of EA Sports College Football.
No, that's I think that's a good call. In fact, I think next year's sales of this game will beat last year's sales and this year's sales of the game.
Oh, you know what? We might have a 10-year record on our hands here.
We might. Like, there's a lot of excitement here. You know what I always thought about sort of the interesting part about making this around the second Tuesday in July is that what happens right around that time? For us college football hardcores, all the media days, right?
Right.
So that's when you start getting the blood juicing a little bubbly going. Like, okay, all right, I'm seeing the I always love this for college football fans, the finish line. I see September coming.
Yeah.
So finally, we're done with this 9-month horror show that is the year. And we can get to football.
Can I throw you out like another thing? And granted, this is total coincidence of when games actually, like, the actual college football season kicks off. It's just happy coincidence. But you know what I think works really well for EA Sports? I would have to look this up, but I seem to recall at one point the most popular birthday months for Americans were July and August. Like, that has to play a nice little role in all those kids going off to college, getting a nice little gift, nice little hey, play video games instead of doing drugs from your parents.
Dude, I don't discount that coming from you, a well-known researcher and something like this, and that's true.
Sure.
Holy crap! Are you kidding me? Just stacking, just like metrics on top of metrics on top of metrics, trying to sort of bake in like success. Like, we're not going to lose money on this. Excuse me. Okay, so that was the first sort of piece of information. The second piece I thought was interesting is that EA is now gathering stadium assets, of course, but what they're ready to get, which says to me that they're in a good space with these stadium assets, is that they're now looking for what is called they want music assets too. And they attached in the latest memo that Matt got, which was a spreadsheet that EA was looking for about certain band songs, crowd chants, and cheers, and if they had any of the audio that they could give them, great. And if not, if you could, I guess, type out what the chants are, which feels like really like Duke basketball-y, right?
Right.
It's like, all right, we're going to type our chants, folks. Here we go. Let's go blue. Okay, that's one of them. So
I do. It is funny to think about like the student at like his first, game as a freshman at Arkansas, going into the student section and having to have the words "woo pig suey" typed out for him. What is this?
It is a significant amount of O's in this woo.
Yeah.
So like
first time out, he gets it wrong and yells "woo cow."
Yeah.
Oh God, wrong barnyard animal.
Or you get the cadence wrong. You're like, whoa, like you don't build it up like the crescendo like they like to do, and then all of a sudden it's just this really bizarre sounding chant you have in the stadium. You're like, oh, this is not a haunted house, people. It's Memorial Stadium here. Come on now, War Memorial is supposed to sound better than this.
What would be funnier? Wrong cadence where you just get a monotone whoa big suey hey, or would it be funnier to have the emphasis put on the wrong syllable?
Oh, wrong syllable. Wrong syllable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Whoa.
It's like, no, that's not at all what we say. Wow. You have to mess up on
what? Why don't you hang back and just mouth along to what we do for the first couple of touchdowns? You'll pick it up.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm giving it to you.
Yep, sex shops.
You know what? Another thing that has been previously undiscussed by us, as well as when we had Matt on, and I'm not sure if Matt has sort of reported this yet, which is why I thought this was fascinating. that part of the assets that they're looking for is helmet stickers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking also not only just to have the helmet stickers, what they look like, so on and so forth, but also they're working hard on trying to figure out how to make the distribution throughout the season make sense of helmet stickers. So, if you're a
Interesting.
Buckeye, right, like you'd have none at the start of the season, or maybe a couple from fall practice or something, and then by the time you got to the Michigan game, like presumably you'd have a few more of them on your helmet by the time you got to theirs, which is not something a ton of people would discuss and be like, man, this is a great part about the game, but it's the devil's always in the details, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like back when you had create a team mode, and I'm talking about like built into the game, not the version where you had to go online and create a team and then load it into the game. Like what you were going to do for your helmet sticker was a part of that process, right? And it was a fun part of that process. I guess I never really paid attention before of do more bones appear on the back of a Georgia helmet? Do more Buckeyes appear on the back of an Ohio State helmet as the season goes on? I've just never really paid attention. That would be a very fun thing to see happen. Also, I would like to see if they're going to do that, right? It would be really cool to have it acknowledged on screen when a player has earned a helmet sticker.
Mm-hmm. I think it's almost kind of like I don't know how much you ever play. I don't know if PlayStation does this. I plead ignorance here because I've been an Xbox guy for so long. But like Xbox has within these games, like these, user achievements, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah, they
and
have
the
that
big
on
Xbox
PlayStation.
logo unlocks in the middle of the, at the bottom of the screen. It's like you just did this and earned 25G, not grand, just gamer points or something, whatever Xbox
Right.
called it. I never really got into that. I'm not really sure what it is. But like it was an achievement there. I feel like if you had something to that effect where you had a sack, like just, and then you had like a bone come up, like a dog bone come up for the Bulldog
Yeah.
helmet. You're like, all right, oh nice, all right, good, all right,
Or
that's going to be put on for next game. Or hell, I don't know
or
if
you
you're going
know
to figure
what
out to put
you
it on that game, but it seems like it's unnecessary. Or you have one of the trainers put one on during the play.
just run out to the field while you
Oh
right
yeah,
after
yeah.
the tackle, slap it on,
After
and
the
then run back
sack,
on.
trainer comes on with the dog bone while you're lining up, calling the play for the next one. Dog bone on the back.
I mean, you could also make the idea of helmet sticker just an achievement thing. Like, remember it what, like from 11 on, you would get your XP at the end of each game based on,
Mm-hmm.
did you have 200 yards throwing and 100 yards rushing? Did you have, did you allow fewer than 21 points? And you'd get, your experience bar for your coach would fill up a little bit. There could be like, and maybe you don't even have to acknowledge specific things, but it could be like, you know, 14 helmet stickers earned in the game over the course of the entire roster, right? 14 helmet stickers earned, that gives your coach this many number of XP.
Yeah, and then like the coach can like have him on his pant leg, right, going all the way down.
I think if you are the coach at Tennessee, I mean, other schools can do this too, but we do need a Derrick Dooley tribute in the game. Your slacks get progressively more neon orange the better your team is playing.
At one point, you're like, I can't see the game. I don't understand what's going on. I can't
I was
see.
about to say, or because it is a tribute to Derrick Dooley, maybe it goes the opposite way, where the more respectable your team is, the more respectable color of orange your pants are.
Or one of the achievements, if you're at Tennessee, could be like, hey man, you're probably tired walking around. Here's a stool, right? Here's a Derrick Dooley stool for you to sit on this game.
I just, you know what? We have talked so much about AD mode and about story mode. Like, let's have Derrick Dooley mode.
I don't listen. I would love a Derrick Dooley mode, right? Like inside to Tennessee or just in general. Like, come on,
Just in,
there's
in
not a
general, like the clock gets under 1 minute, and instead of counting down chronologically, it just jumps all over the place, and you have to guess when it's time to snap the ball or when you're running out of time to get the field goal team on.
or your guys didn't know how to properly bathe. You start the game off like -7. It's just really.
I've forgotten that all of Tennessee got MRSA under Derrick Dooley.
There was so much dumb Derrick Dooley stuff that happened there. Like it's so
I mean,
much.
I know I know based on record alone, you cannot call him the worst head coach in SEC history. That would truly be unfair. But like, can you think of a guy that was less prepared to coach? Like, forget the SEC, less prepared to be a head football coach than Derrick Dooley.
Well, because he was like option number 16 on the list when they got to him. He's like, "What do you want me for?"
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, look, it's obvious, right? Vince is a legend. His dad is a legend of this sport. Derrick Dooley is the polar opposite. Derrick Dooley is like the head coach didn't show up for the Little League game, and so the team mom has to put together the lineup, except an entire season of that.
At the same time, she's like looking through the cooler for the orange slices to be like, "I know I brought him. I know I brought him."
Yeah, like multiple times, the ump is just calling kids out for not being at the plate, but she is laser focused on where is that goddamn Capri Sun.
Folks, we are building Derrick Dooley mode in front of your eyes, by the way. Okay, so anyway, back to some of this news that we found out from the FOIAs that were submitted by Matt. One of the things that was interesting is that Matt reported that there were nearly 120 institutions, conferences, and bowl games that have, quote, conceptually approved to be a part of the game. But those institutions specifically that have not approved have already sent stadium and sound information to EA Sports. So essentially, they're not in, but they're in.
Right.
And all they seem to be waiting for, and we've talked about this sort of with Matt and on our own. We're waiting to figure out how to pay these players to be a part of the game, right? And so once they figure out that type of collective, which, it's being reported by Matt and others, that they'll happen sometime this summer. In fact, maybe in, next month in July. Once they figure out a type of collective or union or something that would be able to allow them to say, yes, I want in the game, or no, I don't want to be a part of the game, then you'll start seeing like a waterfall of just, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, the key cog. Now, I've said over and over again that to me, the idea of having to have real players is not that important. But what I do think matters here is it is the tangible proof. It is the unimpeachable sign that you can do this without the NCAA. That this is not a hindrance. Remember, when this game was first announced and they were going to do it without the NCAA, there was a lot of buzz about who wasn't going to be in the game. And it was, and I'm talking about the very, very early days. It was as big as Georgia. It was as small, or I guess as inconsequential, let's say, as Tulane. But for college football fans, every single one of them mattered of who was not going to be in the game, or at least who publicly stated they were not going to be in the game. If you can get all of the teams, if you can get a significant number of big-time players, I think it shows you that even as the NCAA continues to rip itself apart, there is a path forward for this game.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think what's going to be great is that once you see this collective figured out, and either the DMs or emails are going to go to these people to be able to to say yes or no. I cannot wait for the 5,000 posts on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok to say, "I'm in. Can't wait to play next year." Like,
yeah, that's got to be one of the things you do, right? If you're EA, you have to pre-send out avatars of all these guys you want in the game, so that and encourage them to post it when they say they're in.
You know what? I didn't think about. I thought EA might just sort of hold back just because of all the work that it may take to wait to who was going to be in the game. But I tell you what, if you want to say, if you want to increase the marketing of it and you want to increase the hype and the buzz and the excitement, you could do it by a 100,000 time factor.
Right.
If you said, "Hey, Bryce, this is what you'll look like," or
"Hey, and that's the other thing
Richardson,
too, right?
This is what you'll look like."
There are certain dudes you are going to need, like Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, like those dudes you are going to have to get the look right. I can't remember his full name, but the Njigba out of Ohio State. Like, those are kids that are expected. Will Anderson's another one. Like, they're expected to be big stars this season, going into the college football season. You will have to get that look right. But there are plenty of dudes that if you just get the skin tone and the eye color right and you just put them in their jersey, like, that's good enough.
Dude, they're gonna freak out. I see these guys freak out over like poor photoshops they get during recruiting with like their name on the back
Right.
of the jersey, right? Like you're like, hey man, I'm
Yeah,
kind of that shade of pale.
I was about to say, which would you rather have? The idea that maybe that's you in a video game, or having to pose with, be it Brian Kelly or with Gary Patterson in some sort of weird panoramic camera recruiting video.
Like it's all gonna be like it's all literally gonna be dudes like Leo DiCaprio in La La Land, where he's like holding his mouth like, ooh, that's me. Like he recognized in the email, of course. That'd be Demetri, that's a great idea. EA, if you're listen, we tag you everything we do, so I know you're seeing this.
It's true. And by the way, because I made money as a movie reviewer, at one point I have to correct you and tell you it was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that the Leonardo DiCaprio meme is.
That's fair, because La La Land was like the musical, right?
That's right. Genuinely one of the worst movies that is recognized as good that I could ever imagine.
I apologize, because the other one is a Quentin Tarantino film, which is actually liked, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Even though La La Land won Oscars and stuff, right? So whatever, doesn't matter.
I think people will remember La La Land was the one that was announced as the winner of Best Picture, and then Warren Beatty had to go up and go, oh, no, wait, my bad. Totally my fault. It was actually Moonlight that won Best Picture.
Oh, that's pretty solid. Okay, so let me ask you just a brief thing on this, and then we'll move over, because there's only a couple other items that we have sort of newsworthy. Is there a threshold, do you think, where like if the EA is doing what they're wanting to do, which is go all in with having current players, do you think there's a threshold of like number of dudes that you don't think you'd recognize that you'd be down with, or would it be the certain types of dudes? Like, is it, hey, clearly that guy doesn't play center for Utah, or is it, hey man, where's Spencer Rattler? Like, that doesn't make sense.
So that is, I think, the flaw in this idea of building it around real players. Like, maybe I'm wrong, Arky, but it only takes one to throw it off, because this isn't a situation where, you understand Barry Bonds isn't in MVP baseball, or you understand Michael Jordan is not in NBA Live. Like, those guys have their own brand. They are the biggest star in the sport, blah, blah, blah. Literally, like, let's say, it could be somebody as big as Will Anderson. It could be somebody as, a starter, certainly would have to be a starter, but it could be somebody that doesn't really have a name outside of, the most hardcore of Iowa State fans know who the number 2 wide receiver on that team is, and he's not in there.
Yeah, that's what I kind of worry about. But again, like with me, like after like one recruiting cycle, I'm done, right? Like I get it, so I move on. So I
agree with you.
I don't have everybody memorized on any roster, really. I think I know fewer than 10 people on like 3 rosters, and that's it, right? Like so, like it's not a huge.
Listen, I'm a draft head, so I know like the biggest of big names, but really, it's going to be week 4 before I even learn who are on the rosters of the teams that I genuinely like. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know, like, deep down who is on, who's on Arizona's roster.
I do think it's interesting.
By the way, do you appreciate how much I'm not mentioning Alabama when I give examples this week?
My God, can I say I'm proud of you, and then I'm actually about to crush you with this one. Let's talk about Bryce Young. Well, because I think he's a great example. Let's say Bryce Young says he doesn't want to be in the game because, whatever 4-figure he's going to get is not enough for him, or whatever he wants to do, right?
Right.
So then if you're EA, do you just make Alabama's number 2 quarterback number 1? Do you make a new avatar of the starting quarterback, right? Like it's all of a sudden the number 1 quarterback like Blake Sims looking, right? Like as far as like being shorter and stockier and like very much a different pigmentation, like very darker than Bryce Young. Like that's what I wonder is that what
it's a good question, because like if if you make him what's Bryce Young is officially listed at 5'11", if you make him 5'11", mixed race, that very distinct, like I could kind of grow a mustache, I kind of can't facial hair, and he's from Mater D in California, like then we're back into that example of AJ McCarron that I use all the time of it's QB 10, but boy are all the details dead on.
Right. And then you could be like, hey, what about Auburn? Like, no one knows who anybody is at Auburn, so that's fine. Like, it really doesn't matter.
Listen, it's interesting. In Alabama, Bryce Young in Alabama is a good example. CJ Stroud, Ohio State, is a good example. But you know what I think is an even better example is like Will Levis at Kentucky. Kentucky doesn't usually have a guy that is considered one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks going into that would be available in the draft. To me, that is the bigger, like, hey, what do they do? Because I think Kentucky fans are more invested in the details of Will Levis and would be more let down if Will Levis was not in the game than, and I truly believe this, than Alabama fans would be with Young, than Ohio State fans would be with Stroud.
Okay, Demetri, what I'm hearing from you is a challenge to Alabama fans, and that is not the best place to be at.
Yeah, I would.
Hey, Alabama fans, if you're watching and listening, would you be more pissed than Kentucky fans if Bryce Young was in the game than if Kentucky fans didn't have Will Levis in the game?
Well, I mean, think about this, right? Like the year. This isn't a great 1-for-1 because Alabama was sort of wandering the wasteland with quarterbacks. But I guess if you think about Florida State and their string of dudes that were supposed to be great after Jameis that never really panned out, do you think Florida State fans would have been as devastated if DeAndre Blackman wasn't in the game as, say, Louisville fans would have been if there was no Lamar Jackson? Like, not to pick on the state of Kentucky, but again, we are talking about the once-in-a-lifetime guy for that university versus the Pipeline University.
True, and we are a Kentucky-centric podcast, so
it's true. We are really going against what people think. We have traded Crimson Tide for Bluegrass.
Next week, New Mexico State references the entire show. You a Lobo guy or you an Aggie guy?
I'm more of a Lobo man, but I recognize that at least in terms of college football, man, nobody has a tougher uphill climb than the Aggies. Think about this: if you go, and I'm not talking about NCAA. I'm talking about genuine, actual college football.
Fair.
Undefeated at Alabama may not be as impressive as 6 wins at New Mexico State.
All right, so more news I wanted to talk about. A few things.
Oh wow! Look at you, not walking through that minefield.
That's right, man. I have something called decorum, and I can stick away from just punching out people in the Southwest for crying out loud.
My goal is at some point for Paul Feinbaum to receive a call about us.
Hell yeah. That's a good goal to have, Demetri. I like that goal.
Yeah.
He also reported that you remember we talked about the financial tiers, the 4 tiers the programs will get paid on.
Yep, and I did see this. The tiers are pretty wild this year.
Yes, so the 4 tiers based on literally like a 10-year average of like how your top 25 rankings are going to be, which by the way will include this year for next year's game. So they're still doing the math and trying to figure that out. Now, tier 1, which is the most you can sort of make from this or the base, if you're in that tier, it's the base what you can make, right? This is what you should expect. $104,900.
I mean, not enough to make a budget of an athletic department, but also not nothing.
Not nothing, right? But I also find it interesting that that's up from what it was when we first talked about this, which was somewhere around $78,000.
Yep. I mean, hey, inflation's hitting everybody, Arky, Shea.
That's right, especially EA apparently having to pay.
That's right.
With this inflation. Tier 2 is like $62,900, which was $47K in the previous version. Tier 3 is $41,900, which was $31,000, and Tier 4, just thankful to be getting a check, $10,400 compared to what was $7,500. So now they can buy 2 suits for seniors in Tier 4.
I was about to say, compared to you pay us to be in the game.
Right, compared to, I mean, let's look at it this way, guys. New Mexico, you should be really paying us.
That really would be funny. Of like, who is? I guess San Jose State was like historically always bad, but at the time the last game came out, you could understand if EA Sports or like San Jose State, UMass, if EA Sports said, "Look, for us to put the effort in, you guys are going to have to make it worth our while."
Listen, I know it's not a huge stadium, but like, come on, right? Like,
yeah, time is money.
I feel like UMass would put together like they would write the offer on a sheet of paper, fold it, slide it across the desk, and then EA would write on the same piece of paper a counter offer, send it back. UMass opens it and it just says, "Come on,
be cool."
All right, guys, we get it. It's stage 1, but let's just go ahead and get to the nuts and bolts real quick. You're lucky to be here.
Right.
It also reported that that they're still planning to do an ultimate team mode like Madden has, FIFA has, and so forth. And I just wonder, from your standpoint, do you have a lot of interest in an ultimate team mode? Would it depend on the presentation if it's similar to what Madden and FIFA is? Because this is one of those spots where I think a lot of fans do not like EA 4. But 4 is because this is where you get a lot of the DLC, the downloadable content that costs extra, and you're like just trying to open a pack of cards and hoping you get, somebody decent. If not, spend another $4 or whatever it is. So, is this something you're pleased with, or even be interested if you were playing the game, which you will be 1 year from almost now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a ton of interest in it just because, the realism is part of the selling point of this game. And I don't need a version of this game where Tim Tebow throws the ball to Saquon Barkley. I mean, that's not what I'm looking for out of the college football game. Yeah. I mean,
you don't want to watch Quantum Leap football?
Yeah, I was about to say, or the other part too is like if you do Ultimate Team within the same program, right, where you would have Tim Tebow then throwing to say like Emmitt Smith out of the backfield. Like either way, that kind of stuff doesn't really appeal to me. I don't know. You talked about the complaints of EA being with the DLC. A big part of the complaint about Madden for so long, and a complaint in recent years about FIFA as it relates to Ultimate Team, is that is where all of the effort for innovation has been put. Other than that, you might get better graphics, but the game has not evolved at all. To me, I mean, that is my number one concern about this game. Do they put all of the focus on Ultimate Team and, we just get a reissue of everything we want to see updated?
Well, I will say that we that has sort of been like a big fear, like since this, when Matt reported this, like the day our last episode came out, last Friday.
Yeah.
It's funny how we timed it to where we essentially were talking about us moving the date of the show dropping just before everyone got word that July 2023 was still the planning date for the game release. I think the fear was similar to what you're saying, which is please just don't make this a Madden reskin, right? Like just don't, like we just know they're going to. But Matt, when we interview Matt, that's episode 6, by the way, in the podcast. If you want to go back and find it in the archives, it's a really, really good discussion with them. We get really a lot more granular than I think he was probably expecting us to get with this game. He probably thought we were going to be like, so when's the game coming out? Thanks for coming on, Matt.
Yep.
we got deep into the weeds with them. But he sort of mentioned that like they're putting a lot of money and effort into a complete redesign of this game. So I would be stunned and, as you said, very disappointed if it turned out to be anything similar to what our fears would be, which it was just take Madden and go forward. But Matt seems to think that we're not looking at a Madden engine for the new game. That something's being built special for it, which would be humongo.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, I never had the worry that the gameplay would have all of the flaws that Madden does, or that it would just be a reskin of Madden. My worry has never been that. My worry has never been about what does the game look like when we are, at that phase of breaking the huddle, calling the play, all that sort of stuff. My worry has always been for the stuff that is not gameplay, is everything but the stuff that requires you to purchase downloadable content sort of put on the back burner or given a little bit less attention. And that's not a fear that has necessarily been assuaged as of yet. I mean, I remain optimistic that this is going to be the best version we've ever seen of the game. But it's a fear I can't get out of my mind.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. As much as we blow smoke up EA because we love this game and stuff, I know DLC is going to be a big part of the new game.
Yeah.
My hope is with you that it doesn't become a distracting point of the game, and B, that we don't lose some of what the game can be and how good it is, just general function, away from just, are they jumping 25 feet in the air to get an interception kind of thing.
Right.
And are they sort of not focused in on the pieces that we talk about we love so much on this game, as much as they are trying to create, Tim Tebow. This is definitely a 97 attribute, not a 96, and we got that.
Right. Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Because that kind of stuff, it's moved for me. And I think it's moved for a lot of people. Like, I think people do want to collect the cards, collect the players, and I do think that's very much out there. I just don't want it to be at a sacrifice to, a really thoroughly developed Dynasty mode, which is the next point that I want to bring up in the final one, which is.
Well, hang on. Before you do that, I will tell you one of the things that I think there is a divide with video game fans when it comes to any sport, right? Is between the gamers and the fans of the sport, that maybe this is the only game they play. My buddy Adam Cole, who was just a guy that listened to me when I was on the radio, and he has found joy in a lot of things that I've done podcasts about just because he enjoys what I do, right? He was never a sports guy at all. But because I, made the move over to sports radio, he started listening and got himself more and more into sports. And he and I were talking one time about, oh gosh, it may have been about this game. It may have been about the older versions of this game, where he talked about the fact that, it will probably never be put this way because EA probably doesn't want their audience to think about this. But at some point, that version or the versions of this game that involve collecting cards, that involve getting these things that boost attributes, like at some point, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, Dungeons and Dragons absolutely came to the sports video game world. And it's just a matter, I think, of how much are you willing to or want that to sort of be a part of things. How much do these boosts matter to you? How much do putting in the special character really matter to you? Like I don't want to play a version of the game where you have different guys from different eras playing together, but I also don't know that I'm necessarily jazzed to play a version of the game where, you have the you have the AJ Dillon card. So, if you are playing with Boston College, that means you get, +5 on tackle breaking. I don't know that I want that necessarily either.
Yeah, but I have found out through our comment section, which by the way, you guys keep doing, it's pretty solid. There's a lot of people not like us, right? There's a lot of people who do enjoy that kind of thing. And more and more people than I thought there actually were out there. And, I sort of have grown to more appreciate that they do kind of want the ability to do that. They do want to embrace the fact that, hey, Cam Newton was on my team, or, hey, Marcus Tuiasosopo was on my team, right? That's right. That Marcus Tuiasosopo was on my team.
That's right.
Like they want to be able.
Isn't he an assistant coach somewhere now?
I have 0.0 idea where Marcus Tuiasosopo is right now.
You keep doing the show. You know what I'm doing for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. And by the way, don't tweet at Demetri where he's at. Sneak into his DMs to tell him. Make it weird. I
Yeah.
thought I liked. Yeah. But like
He is the offensive coordinator of the Rice Owls.
right. So much about college football is like that we love in general is like the history of it, and so
Oh, sure.
being able to grab those players, whether or not you just want to play as a one-off or something, or try to get the ultimate, Texas team, so to speak, like unlock all your cards and stuff, get Ricky Williams and, and Colt McCoy. Those are the only two players that played here, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone else playing there before.
I think that's it, right? Maybe Brian Orakpo was on the cover. That's like 3. I got 3, So like there's that aspect that I think I do more and more appreciate as I go forward. I'd be shocked if that's not a very big part of what they try to get our cash money. The final thing
listen, to your point about people experience this different than you and I do, I totally get that. And I am all for that being a part of the game. I don't know that I want that to be something unavoidable in the game. I think is probably a better way to say that.
Okay, so you don't want to start a season and know that Washington team has Marcus Tuiasosopo.
That's right. Why? Make it fair, for Christ's sake.
I think a lot of people will look at the last handful of Alabama teams will be like, hey, make it fair. What is going on here?
By the way, over under 5.5 years in the NFL for Marcus Tuiasosopo.
I say over.
Significantly over 8 years.
Yeah, I think he was Tennessee. He was Oakland, and I don't know.
Are you never Tennessee? He was.
He was
Oakland.
Tennessee. My bad.
No, he was Oakland for 6 years, then did a year with the Jets, and then back to Oakland for a year.
Yeah, so Tennessee is you had to fly over that sometimes,
Yeah, probably.
If like it's like maybe during the off season when you couldn't get like a direct flight from.
I was about to say maybe he flew Southwest and he had to change planes in Nashville.
That's right. Listen, Oakland wasn't spending big money back then. Okay, the final piece I want to talk about, which pertains more to us and what we love about this game, is Dynasty mode itself, and that it's reported that CLC and EA have mentioned that they are making a significant investment intellectual property wise into trying to figure out a way to lift up Dynasty mode and bring it into modern day and sort of influence with some of the modern issues that you would have since this game's been out. So there's going to be a significant piece of this puzzle, which is Dynasty mode. I mean, Demetri, like if this Dynasty mode sucks, like I'm just not going to play the game. It's going to be a real bummer. And I'm really not going to want to play it the next time it comes out. So clearly they got to put a lot of love into it. But apparently there is a lot of love being put into it, and also trying to update what you're having to deal with modern day versus what you had to deal with, when you were playing it in 2013.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that at the most basic level, you're going to have recruiting going on in a transfer setting and not just, hey, you're the head coach at Texas State and this quarterback from Oklahoma wants to come transfer in. Like, check yes if you want him. Like you've got to do more than that.
I hope it's a check yes or no thing.
Well, I mean, you remember it was like that. That's what it was. Like you put the check mark on and you left it off.
I just.
Oh, you don't want that updated.
I just want to see it, brother. I just want to see it.
The other thing too is like I think you got to give in Dynasty mode you got to give the coach more say over coordinators. I think and Arky, those coordinators should affect what you do on the field. Like that is a
big bone of contention that you want. By the way, I totally get why you want that. It seems to make a ton of sense, right? Like, yeah, it's literally like, why did sorry.
I mean, look,
why did Alabama advance into the modern day with football? Well, it was because of an offensive coordinator, Lane Kiffin.
I mean, listen, this is if you talk about updating Dynasty mode to match where we are in real history. What are the two biggest things that have happened since 2014? Well, number one, coach salaries have absolutely exploded. And it's not that they hadn't before the 2013 game, but I mean, I think specifically this last cycle, we're in a whole new realm of coaching salaries exploding the way they are. The Clemson dynasty put us in a whole new level of pay for coordinators to keep Venables around, to keep Chad Morris around for as long as they did. So that's one. And the other is player agency with the transfer portal, with NIL. Like, I think you update, you put effort into what the transfer process and the coaching carousel on the assistant side looks like. And I think you are taking a big step forward of modernizing the game.
Just looking up in 2013, the highest paid football coaches. Would you want to take a guess?
It had to be Saban and Les Miles, right?
It's Saban, Mac Brown, Brett Bielema, Butch Jones, Bob Stoops. That's your top 5. Nick Saban made $5.5 million.
Yeah, I remember when he got to Alabama, he was like the highest paid coach at like 4.3, I think.
But I'm saying,
so that would have been 07.
Yeah, it's like $35 million a year now, right? It feels like it.
Right.
Like it's over double that now. Like, and it's not, like it's not been the double amount of years since he's been a head coach.
Yeah. Well, I think now, there is a tax that the citizens of Alabama pay that go directly to
it. By the way, Butch Jones, $4.8 million. That worked out nicely, didn't it?
Wow. I mean, look, they got 5-star Hearts out of the deal.
Demetri, it's all about marketing. You got the eye for it. You got the eye. I like it. Man, dude, EA Sports, if you could do this for me. It's a late ask. I kind of get it, although we still got a year. Give me a couple games at a NASCAR track. Figure it. Let's just give me a field on a NASCAR track.
I got to tell you, it is one of those things, not the NASCAR track specifically, but the idea of, like, they always had MetLife Stadium, right? Like, and very rarely have college football games been played at MetLife Stadium. I think there have been 2 since the stadium opened. Give me another, like, absurd, like, hey, we have the rights to this because we made video game X. So, like, hey, college football game at, I don't know, American Airlines Arena in Dallas. Like, we've got the rights to this thing, so this is a possibility. Make every NFL stadium a possible neutral site. Why not?
No, listen. If you're worried about the Madden stuff, you already got all the NFL stadiums. Just give me EA. Does EA still do the NASCAR game?
I think so. Listen, Arky, I'm going to throw one out to you because you know what else EA still does? EA still does Tiger Woods.
Are we talking
a neutral site?
Yes, Queen. That's what we're doing. We're doing, at the very least, we're doing a punt, pass, and kick on the 18th, right? Like
Absolutely.
Leading up to Butler's Cabin. I'm good with that. By the way,
whichever one is the dumb one that people jerk off over. Let's be kicking balls into bushes there.
Well, that's all golf, right? Like, that's all of, like, professional golf. Like,
Listen, the only one I know is Pinehurst number 2 because it's not far from where I live. But I couldn't tell you anything about that hole other than it's the second one.
Well, you can talk about Amen Corner at Augusta, which is 3 different holes.
Right, so. Yeah. See, that was when you said that, my first thought was, yeah, but that's a quarter. I think there's more than one hole there. But I didn't say it out loud because I was worried. What if it's not?
Well, it is. And it is also what I would like to say. This show is done. It is done is what it is. Demetri, a lot of fun breaking down the new news. We got to go. We hope you guys have a great week and a great weekend. Keep sharing this here podcast. But until we see you guys again, Demetri, I think it's time to say goodbye to the people.
Real quick, what is the soccer game now is going to be called? Is it EAFC, I think? Give me the Notre Dame Ireland series as a potential neutral site game. Saving some to next week, everybody.